need for Alzheimer's research. In the coming years, without remarkable advancements, almost every person in the United States is going to be affected by the implications of Alzheimer's in one way or another. George Bernard Shaw said, "Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything." We need the United States government to change their minds because we need them to fund Alzheimer's research. Our government needs to invest in the necessary research now to prepare for the upcoming Alzheimer's epidemic. Now, I was the power of attorney for both of my maternal grandparents when they were suffering from Alzheimer's, and I am currently the guardian and conservator for my 65-year-old mother who has advanced stages of Alzheimer's. So I am personally vested in the advancement of research in Alzheimer's care. According to the Center for Disease Control, Alzheimer's is the 6th leading cause of death across the entire population, all ages. It's in 6th place. Of the top 10 causes of death in the United States, it is the only one that is not preventable, it is not curable, and there is no way to slow it down. So it's a pretty big problem even right now, but we are on the cusp of a dramatic situation that is known as the 2030 problem. Now, before you even start to think that this is some kind of a conspiracy, there is lots of research and lots of organizations that are talking about the 2030 problem. Here's one by the National Center for Biotechnology Information, one by the Population Institute, and one by the U.S. Census Bureau. So it's a pretty big deal. Well, so where is this 2030 number coming from? About 9 months, almost exactly 9 months after the end of World War II, in 1946, the United States experienced the largest number of babies being produced than they ever had in years prior. Between the years of 1946 and 1964, 76 million babies were born. This generation is called the baby boomers. And as you might imagine, we're just now getting to the point where they're getting 65 and older, which puts them at risk for Alzheimer's. According to ALZ.org, ALZ.org, there are about 5 million Alzheimer's Americans right now. In the year 2030, we're projecting 10 million Alzheimer's Americans. 2050, 16 million. So what are the implications of having this big of a population of Alzheimer's people? Well, one is Medicare. According to a scientific journal by James Nickman and Emily Snell, in 2030, Medicare is going to be bankrupt if we don't do something now to prevent it. By 2050, the anticipated costs of caring for Alzheimer's with Americans with Alzheimer's, just Alzheimer's, no other disease, just to care for those Alzheimer patients, it's going to exceed $1 trillion. That is double what our entire Medicare budget is right now. So what is Medicare? Medicare is a government program that provides insurance to those that are over 65 or those with disabilities. So if we're already bankrupt just on taking care of Alzheimer's, what about the rest of the population that is over 65 or has a disability? How are we even going to care for those people? So secondly, we'll look at the lack of resources. Resources are an issue now with the 5 million Alzheimer's patients that we have. There's a website, aplaceformom.com, and that's a place where you can go to reach out for help in placing your Alzheimer patient loved ones into an Alzheimer's facility. And what they recommend right now is that as soon as your loved one is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, that you go ahead and get them on the waiting list. That way, by the time they come to the point where you need to place them, they're already at least towards the top of the waiting list on several different waiting lists, because it takes forever to get somebody where they need to go. So that's with the 5 million people we have now. Again, extrapolate that concern out to the 5 million in 2030, the 16 million in 2050. And then of course there's the economic impact. And this one just makes this common sense. So the 76 million baby boomers that we had before, at the time in the 60s, 70s, they comprised about 40% of the population. Well, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, in 2030, they will be about 25% of the population. Well, that's 25%, that's 1/4 of the population that's no longer generating an income, they're no longer paying taxes, and they're no longer stimulating the economy by making purchases because all of the money that they do have is going to go towards their health care. That's going to hurt. Right now, there are no medications or procedures that can prevent or stop the disease. Neuroscience research efforts are underway to develop effective treatments and prevention, but they need funding in order to make any real results. And we happen to know that government funding does lead to progress. Just look at how well it worked for breast cancer. According to the National Cancer Institute and the reports that they have on cancer.gov, we look at the breast cancer history. Reports started in the 1950s, and then all of a sudden there was this big spike in breast cancer incidence in the 1980s. In reaction to that spike, the government suddenly started pumping a lot of funding money, a lot of dollars going towards research. And then by the end of the 1990s, you started seeing a decline in the morbidity rates for breast cancer. By 2002, in the year 2002 to 2003, they saw a 7% drop in just that 1 year. It works. When the government gets behind a disease and funds the research, funds the clinical trials, we see progress. So right now, we have a small handful of drugs that just help to alleviate the symptoms of Alzheimer's. They don't actually do a whole lot. And then we have the suggestions for risk reduction. You know, physical exercise will improve your vascular health. Participating in brain exercises like on luminosity or Sudoku crossword puzzles. Stress reduction is supposed to help reduce your risk. Other than that, that's really all we got right now. We have about 15 years to get underneath of this thing before it's going to be pretty big. Meeting the financial and social service burdens will not be as daunting a task if we make the necessary changes now, rather than waiting until the baby boomers are actually needing their long-term care. We have seen from the impressive successes of breast cancer that prove that investing in research yields life-altering treatments and prevention. The scientific community is in agreement that if given the right opportunities, funding, that we can expect to see those same progress in Alzheimer's. Without adequate research, we will remain at the mercy of this disease. The National Institute of Health confirms that current projections largely depend on meaningful commitment from the government to support Alzheimer's research. As eloquently stated by Scott Kirschenbaum, though those with Alzheimer's don't remember us, we as a society have to remember them. Thank you. Oh my God, I made it through that.